I specifically want to talk about why when someone says that, oh, I'm not good at gaming, here's what they usually might mean. So now this is purely subjective. This is purely my personal opinion. This is my personal experience. Often at times when you have had a generous and loving amount of exposure to video games as a kid, you don't feel as intimidated getting into them as an adult, or when you get proper proper access to some sort of equipment. Me personally, none of my parents ever saw the appeal in video games. None of my relatives ever saw the appeal in video games, in the sense that it was a nuclear family. I didn't have any siblings. There were no uncles or aunts for me to consult and be like, oh, so this is a video game and this is how you play it. I had flash games at best. I had miniclip.com and I played Fire Girl and Waterboy on that. Fireboy, whatever. Point is, the whole culture that surrounds FPS gaming as a whole was something that I personally never got exposure to, which is why I suffered some major losses, such as never experiencing any of the GTA games ever. I never experienced any GTA game as I should have, as other children my age were experiencing. I didn't get to check out Vice City, San Andreas, and I feel like having played those games as a child really set the foundation of you being able to actually enjoy FPS gaming as a whole when you know, grow a bit older and have a friend group that you play games with. So the first time I actually got access to any equipment that let me play any sort of FPS gaming was when I was in college, and that's a huge gap. My peers were practicing their aims way back in like 5th or 6th grade. It also helps if any of your parents are interested in gaming. Usually for most boys and girls, it's mostly their dads. They'll get a Call of Duty or something from one of their co-workers on a nice little empty CD. They'll burn it and they'll be like, hey kiddo, this is a nice game, I got you, wanna try it out? And any jit with two brain cells would be like, yes. But that's not how it worked out for me. I did have exposure to games, but it was mostly very beautiful, very sweet, educational Disney flash games, and that was about it. Not to say that I didn't know that other games existed. I knew they existed, but since I never had any exposure to them, I was unable to develop an interest in them early on. And unfortunately, that kind of disinterest persists if you did not get the exposure to a good FPS game that has a generous amount of story. You don't feel like exploring it much later down in the game, simply because the skill scaling is just unreachable, and you're like, man, why do I even bother? And you don't really want to put it on easy mode or something, because you're like, there's this internal voyeur in your head being like, hey man, you're not a real gamer using cheats, you're playing it on easy mode. And another part of you will be like, but I want to explore the story. But it just becomes a really, really, really weird cesspool of hey, should I really play this game? Am I enjoying this game to the fullest if I'm not an experienced FPS player with a good aim and all that? And I know a very logical input is that, hey man, you don't need to, it's a single player game, you don't need to be the best FPS player in the world in order to enjoy a good game like that. And I feel like I also have a lot of resentment from having this experience with like some cousins and all that who would get access to these games and they won't let me play with them, because they're like, oh, I don't want your filthy girl cousin hands on my beautiful controller or console. I don't want your filthy unseasoned gamer hands accidentally deleting my save and all that. And I would rightfully say, man, I'm not stupid. I know how saves work. I'm not gonna delete your save, just let me try the game. But no, they won't let you try the game, and that's usually how it goes with a lot of people. And I feel like simply because of that gap just getting wider and wider, people are not able to enjoy a good game that has a lot of FPS gameplay in it. However, about like a year ago, I came across this game called Grandpa High on Retro, and I'm not going to go too much into detail about it because I personally don't know much about it either, and I would like to explore it on stream with you guys. And I genuinely it was captivating because it caught my eye instantly. It was the same amount of magic and vulgarity that I would have been exposed to if I was playing Vice City or San Andreas, but in a more refreshing way. One of the things is that you almost never play as an old guy. That instantly caught my eye because you always play as some sort of young, upcoming hotshot, ripped, physically somewhat attractive young man. And I feel like our elders need to be given the respect that they are due. With that, I will be moving on to Grandpa High on Retro.
Oh, this is life. What a fuck.
Because I need your help. In the meeting, you told that you used to be in the military, right?
I'm alright.
Oh,
Continue.
I need...
And too old for this shit. I'm sorry, lady, but I'm not doing shit.